And this chapter is the final section of the chapter on I want to be the center of your world. And it really talks about what gets in the way for men and what gets in the way for women for the most part. If you're enjoying this series, please like and subscribe and share this with a friend who you think their marriage could benefit from this. And as always, if you have a spare dollar or two, please consider donating to keep my ministry alive right in the link below. Until then, career, children, and other subverters. Before I move from this topic of priorities, I'd like to add two more factors that commonly contribute to our misalignment of priorities: children and careers. Women often make children the center of their world, and many men place career and significance at the center of theirs. Regardless of gender, what is imperative is that in both examples, the spouse is no longer central. I wish to illuminate the insidious threat to superness that each of these can be. If you're anything like me, you may be thinking, well, of course my children are my first priority. They need me and cannot survive without me. My spouse can. While it is unquestionable that our children's basic needs must be a priority for both parents, their relational needs, your relationship with them, must be second to your relationship with your spouse. Numerous marriage and family experts have agreed that the best gift you can give your children is to love their other parent. In this sense, we mean providing our children with their basic physiological needs, but also their needs for emotional security as well. Watching mommy and daddy love one another makes me feel so secure in my own life that I can focus on being a kid. For 20 years, I maintained the rationale that if I were in a sinking boat and I could only save my spouse or my children, I'd undoubtedly save my children. And why wouldn't I? Looking back, my children made me much happier than did my spouse. Or was it that I focused more attention on my children than my spouse, thus relegating him to a non-central position in my thoughts and actions? That resulted in my closer relationship with my kids. I didn't fight with my children. And for the sake of this illustration, let's just skip past those attitude-ridden teen years when I actually wanted to throw them over the boat. I had fun with them. We went to events together and they adored me. At the end of their days, it was me who they came home to, shared their hurts with, and trusted to make things better. Summed up, my children made me feel good, as if I were the center of their world. And it felt good. The above example does not refer to the excessive hovering of helicopter parents, but rather that there were no conditions to their love for me nor mine for them. Thus, those relationships were nurtured. The one with my spouse, sadly, was not, though neither of us realized it. A priority is defined as higher in importance, rank, or privilege. As with our money, when we place spending as a higher priority over saving or vice versa, we realize we can't both save and spend without dividing our resources between our financial priorities. If we're saving for a house, we focus for a time on saving for that house. We eat ramen noodles more often in order to deposit more into the house fund. Once purchased, we can reassess our priorities and reallocate our resources. Relationships work the same way. The ones we nurture grow, and the ones we neglect perish. If our spouses are no longer our relational priorities, higher importance than our kids, our marriages will perish. The arrival of children unquestionably demands a significant reallocation of emotional resources. Supercouples, however, make a deliberate effort to maintain proper balance between spousal and parental relationships. Supercouples always place their spousal relationship above that of their children, thus fostering thriving relationships with their children as well. Now remember, not even super spouses are perfect. I must ensure they remain off, excuse me, of the metaphorical marriage pedestal many of us place them on to our own detriment. They are still imperfect people who are deliberate in making their marital relationships their top priority in their lives. When asked the "whom would you save first" question, each super spouse struggled to answer. For them, it wasn't as easy as it was for me and many other couples. Some said they'd choose their spouse because you could always have more children, and some chose their spouse because they would grab the arms of their children too. But none said they'd choose their children above their spouses unless they felt it's what their spouse would want them to do. Again, trying to please the spouse first. Though the above scenario was only hypothetical, the super couples interviewed all revealed a more concrete proof that they made their spouses their first relational priorities. They did so through date nights and childless vacations. 8 nights? Couples vacations? Wow! Now there's a concept. As I write, I still seem to shake my head at my apparent ignorance of what now seems common sense. Sadly, I have learned I am not alone in this ignorance, as so many other couples likewise neglect the imperative of maintaining a healthy dating life throughout married life. It was so effortless in the early years that we take for granted the relational building and maintenance that takes place through spending quality and quantity time with each other. Super couples protect this part of their relationships passionately. And why? Remember, actions produce feelings. Super couples want to ensure those feelings never depart. Every night when Dwayne would arrive home from a long day at work, he and Gina would send the children to their rooms and spend their first hour together in the living room discussing their day, often over a glass of wine. They advised that during this time the children knew they were not to bother their parents nor interrupt this nightly ritual. This time devoted to one another was to Gina and Dwayne sacred. While they would not have characterized this as a date per se, in essence, this is what it was. What their children saw modeled was the centrality of the spousal relationship. Practices like this, research has shown, do not scar the children, though they will still vie for parental attention, but rather it provides the children with an emotionally secure environment. Gina and Dwayne weren't alone in their deliberate dating either. Trisha and Jim, the youngest super couple interviewed and early into their child-rearing years with 4 children under the age of 8, also protect their date nights. While they admit they go out less frequently than they would like, they do go out at least once a month to recharge the relationship and stay connected. Of course, said Trisha, we spend most of our time discussing the kids while out, but that, they say, is unimportant. The fact that they are able to do so uninterrupted by some kind of preschool drama is all it takes to remind them why they fell in love with one another. Further, Trisha and Jim plan at least one childless vacation a year to nourish the relationship. And by the looks of it, to this outside observer, it was working. Without chronicling the responses of every couple, it should be known that these 2 couples represent 100% of the couples interviewed. Each sought to keep their marital relationship central and did so deliberately through time alone with their spouse. They made each other a priority, even when it wasn't easy to do so. During our troubled years, Dan and I never made dating a priority. We may have gone out on occasion with another couple or group, but it was extremely infrequent. Searching my marital archives, I must admit I have 0 memories of date nights where the 2 of us got a babysitter and went out alone. None. Not one memory. I will take much of the responsibility, as on my part, I didn't recall desiring to do so. Based on poor communication that had us speaking in improper and ugly tones to one another, causing near daily fights, the last thing I desired was time alone with this person who brought me no happiness. However, poor communication aside, I now see how devoted my attention was to our children and how that allowed me to place them in priority position as the center of my world. While for some, children are first priority, for others, it's career. More often, this is true of husbands. Some focus so much on their desire to provide that they neglect nurturing the relationships. The career becomes central. Worse, the family becomes secondary and the marriage a tertiary priority. When this takes place, all 3 suffer: the marriage, the family, and the career. While there are occasions when it's essential to invest more time in one's career, starting a new business, studying for an advancement exam, etc., I must caution for this occasion to be extremely short, and we become hyper-cognizant of its effects on the marriage. Many a would-be super husband has come home to an empty, family-free house because he was so focused on his career, he failed to comprehend the warning cries of his desperate wife. Don't be that person. If you don't take the time to make central the spousal relationship, you will have no one left with which to share the spoils once your career is thriving. I'd like to add one more consideration. When I was studying for my PhD, I felt as if I'd failed if my face weren't buried in a book 24/7. It made logical sense. The more time I spent, the better the work I'd turn in, or the better I'd retain. But after a while, I found the opposite to be true. The more time devoted to my studies without a break, the more my brain became saturated and I became less productive. My mind would wander, my pace would slow, and my emotions would become frazzled. Over time, I realized that just because I was studying didn't mean I was learning. Eventually, I began to put everything down for a day. Extremely difficult to do at first when it seemed I'd certainly fall behind on the 200 pages of assigned daily reading. And soon I realized something amazing. When I allowed myself time to recharge and focus on my priorities, my spouse, my kids, my sanity, I was able to do twice as much in half as much time. By maintaining proper focus, I was able to return to my studies on Monday with renewed focus. In what position is your spouse, your children, your career? Is there a lover? Only one can come first. Keep both, and everyone loses. Attaining super is not effortless. Whether you choose to focus on your lover or your spouse, only one can grow in intimacy. Even if you have no lover, is your focus on your spouse, career, children, hobbies, or some other area of your life? Where are you setting your gaze? If your feelings for your spouse have disappeared, your gaze is likely not upon him or her. But know this: the feelings you once had do and will return. It's impossible for them not to. I am stating that not as some hopeful optimist, but from educated certainty. How can I make such a bold statement? Simply this: because your love-producing actions worked once before, they will work again. Actions beget feelings. I've alluded often to infidelity, but you needn't have experienced that to fall short of a super marriage. These principles are true even if you're in a content marriage, but are not yet extremely happy. If you feel you've moved to a secondary priority in your spouse's heart, or your spouse is secondary in yours, then you might want to re-examine your relational priorities and reprioritize them. This may sound like a lot of work, and it is, but the payoff, an extremely happy marriage, is worth it. Up to now, we've learned what it takes to attain extreme happiness, yet we've not answered, what is happiness anyway? I've learned how to make my spouse happy, but what about me? The good news is that focusing on your spouse's happiness will make us happy too, and we have the science to prove it. I'm excited to get into my next chapters on the actual definitions and types of happiness. These are really intriguing. When I go to my seminars, people love this. So for now, just refocus and see if your spouse is your priority. And if they're not, and if you don't want them to be, recognize that once you make them so and push past the lack of feelings you have, those feelings will come back. I will assure you of it. And if you have a hard time thinking of that, give me a call. I still take clients. Find me at Christine@breakfastwithbacon.com. Until then, I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching another Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.